At 6:12 a.m. on September 9, 1943, Corporal Luigi Ferretti stood in formation outside a German barracks near Krakow, Poland, and realized something was terribly wrong. The guards were German, the rifles were loaded, and the orders were no longer being shouted in Italian. Luigi was 24 years old, a railway clerk from Modena. Drafted in 1941, sent east in 1942, and stationed in occupied Poland as part of Italy's alliance with Nazi Germany. For 2 years, he had worn the same uniform as the men now pointing guns at him. And now, they were aiming. At 6:30 a.m., a German officer climbed onto a wooden crate and read a statement in clipped, emotionless Italian. The Kingdom of Italy has signed an armistice with the Allies. The Italian army is no longer an ally of the German Reich. All Italian soldiers are hereby disarmed. There was a pause. Then the officer added a sentence Luigi would remember for the rest of his life. Any man who refuses to continue fighting for Germany will be treated as an enemy, not a prisoner of war, not a soldier, an enemy. The men looked at each other, confused. Some cheered quietly, some crossed themselves, some cried. The war was over for them, or so they thought. Luigi felt relief wash over him. No more freezing nights, no more Russian front rumors, no more dying for Mussolini. Then the German officer gave the final order. "Step forward if you are willing to serve the German army." No one moved. There were 1,200 Italian soldiers on that parade ground. Not a single step. That silence sealed their fate. Within hours, the Italians were stripped of their weapons. By nightfall, they were loaded into cattle cars. No Red Cross inspections, no Geneva Convention protections, no prisoner of war status. The Germans invented a new category just for them: Italian military internees, not POWs, not civilians, men who officially did not exist. Luigi didn't know where the train was going. The windows were sealed. There was one bucket for 40 men. No food, no water. After 18 hours, the train stopped. The doors slid open. Cold air rushed in, and Luigi saw the sign over the gate. Arbeit macht frei. Work sets you free. He didn't know yet that over 600,000 Italian soldiers would be sent into camps like this. That more than 50,000 would die of starvation, disease, beatings, and exhaustion. That history would barely remember them, because they weren't technically prisoners of war. And Luigi didn't know the worst part yet. The worst part was this. The Germans gave him a choice. Not once, but every single day. Work for the Reich or die slowly behind the wire. And whatever choice he made, someone else would pay the price. The gates closed behind them with a sound Luigi Ferretti would never forget. Metal on metal. Final. Unforgiving. The sign above the entrance promised freedom through work. Inside there was only order, hunger, and fear. The camp was Stalag 344, near Lambsdorff, one of the largest German camps in occupied Poland, originally built for Polish and Soviet prisoners. Now it had a new population: Italians. The guards didn't shout at first. They didn't need to. The Italian soldiers were marched into a dirt courtyard and told to stand in rows of 5. Anyone who stepped out of line was struck with a rifle butt. Not beaten. Corrected. Luigi noticed something immediately. There were no Red Cross markings, no POW registration desk, no record books. The Germans weren't processing them as prisoners of war. They were erasing them. A German sergeant walked down the lines holding a clipboard. He stopped in front of Luigi. Name? Luigi Ferretti. Rank? Corporal. The sergeant paused, then crossed something out. Not anymore. He wrote a number on a wooden tag and hung it around Luigi's neck. IMI-48721. No rank. No nationality. Just a number. They were marched to the barracks. Long wooden buildings, unheated, with 3-tier bunks. 6 men per bunk. There were no mattresses. Just wooden slats and a thin layer of straw already black with lice. The smell hit them before they sat down. Sweat, rot, excrement, despair. That night, they were given their first meal. A tin bowl of gray liquid. No spoon. Someone whispered, "What is it?" A veteran Soviet prisoner answered in broken Italian. "Soup. Maybe potato. Maybe nothing." Luigi drank it anyway. His stomach cramped almost immediately. By morning, 3 Italians in his barrack were already sick. On the second day, the Germans explained the rules. A commandant stood on a platform and spoke slowly, as if addressing children. "You are Italian military internees. You are not prisoners of war. You do not have rights under the Geneva Convention. If you work, you eat. If you refuse, you starve. If you resist, you die." Then he smiled. "But there is good news." The Italians leaned forward. "You may volunteer to serve the German war effort. Factories, mines, railroads, armaments plants, good food, warm clothing, medical care. All they had to do was sign a paper, renounce the King of Italy, renounce the new Italian government, swear loyalty to Germany." The commandant let the silence stretch. Luigi felt it pressing on his chest. Around him, men whispered, "We can't survive here. They'll kill us. It's just work. We don't have to fight." That night, Luigi watched his bunkmate, a 19-year-old from Naples named Enzo, cry silently into his sleeve. Enzo had been captured the same day. Never fired his rifle in combat. On the third day, the selections began. The guards walked through the camp with lists. Names were called. Men stepped forward. Those who volunteered were sent left. Those who didn't were sent right. Left meant food. Right meant the camp. Luigi went right. So did Enzo. So did most of the Italians. Not because they were brave, but because something inside them broke when Germany turned on them overnight. They had fought as allies, and were now being punished for losing. That evening, Luigi saw something that ended any illusion. A group of Italian soldiers had refused work entirely. Not rebellion, not violence, just refusal. They were lined up against a fence. The commandant didn't shout, didn't threaten. He simply ordered the guards to walk away. No food that night. No food the next day. By the third day, the men were crawling. By the 5th, 2 were dead. The rest signed the papers. Luigi understood then. This camp wasn't designed to kill Italians quickly. It was designed to break them slowly. And the Germans had one final advantage. They knew Italy would forget these men. No medals, no victory parades, no heroic myths. Just silence. The list was posted before dawn. Names written in black pencil on a splintered board near the roll call yard. Luigi Ferretti found his number halfway down. IMI-48721. Arbeitskommando 718. Work detachment. Not freedom. Not death. Something in between. They were marched out of the camp under guard and loaded onto trucks with wooden sides. No markings. No destination given. The drive lasted less than an hour. When the truck stopped, Luigi smelled oil and smoke. They were at a munitions factory on the edge of a small industrial town, a place that did not exist on maps. The sign at the gate read, Kriegswichtiger Betrieb, Zutritt verboten. War Essential Facility, no entry. Inside, the rules were explained by a civilian supervisor wearing a factory coat instead of a uniform. You work 12 hours, he said. Day or night. No exceptions. You will assemble shell casings. You will not speak. If a machine stops, you raise your hand. If a shell is damaged, you report it. If you make a mistake, he paused, you will be replaced. Luigi quickly understood what that meant. The factory floor was a blur of motion. Belts moving, presses slamming down, metal screaming as it was shaped into weapons. Italian internees worked beside Soviet prisoners, French POWs, and Polish civilians. But there was a difference. The Soviets were already dead in the eyes of the guards. The French were protected by Geneva rules. The Italians were expendable. They were given the heaviest presses, the oldest machines, the most dangerous tasks. Within the first week, Luigi saw 3 men lose fingers. One lost his arm. The machine didn't stop. Neither did the line. At night, they were locked into a smaller subcamp behind the factory. 4 barracks, barbed wire, 1 guard tower. Food was worse than Stalag 344. A piece of bread so small, Luigi began cutting it into halves to make it last longer. Men aged 10 years in a month. And then the bombings began. Allied aircraft started hitting the factory twice a week. Sirens wailed. Guards ran for shelters. The prisoners were not allowed inside. They were ordered to lie face down in the yard. Luigi pressed his face into frozen mud while bombs fell around him. One hit the assembly hall. The blast wave threw him backward. When the dust settled, the hall was gone. So were 27 workers, mostly Italians. The next day, the commandant arrived. He didn't mention the dead. He posted a new notice. Production quotas were increased. The factory needed to compensate for losses. Men started collapsing at the machines. If you fell once, a guard kicked you. If you fell twice, you were dragged outside. Luigi never saw those men again. One night, Enzo whispered to him in the barrack, "I'm going to sign." Luigi didn't answer. "I can't do this," Enzo said. "They'll kill me here." Luigi understood. Signing meant better food, less dangerous work, a chance to live. It also meant producing weapons that would kill Allied soldiers, maybe even Italians. 2 days later, Enzo was gone, transferred to a German labor unit. Luigi never learned what happened to him. By winter 1943, Luigi weighed 48 kilograms. His hands shook constantly. He stopped dreaming at night. That was the worst part. In December, something changed. The factory manager gathered the Italian internees. Germany needed workers in the coal mines. Volunteers would be selected. The word volunteer hung in the air like a joke. Everyone knew what the mines meant. Dark, cold, gas, cave-ins, but also no bombings. Luigi's name was called. As he stepped forward, he realized something terrifying. He felt relief. And that's when he knew the camp had won. The mine was not marked on any map. No name, no sign. Just a black mouth in the side of a frozen hill in Upper Silesia. Luigi Ferretti arrived there in January 1944. The guards called it a work site. The prisoners called it the hole. Before entering, they were given new rules. You do not look up. the guard said. "You do not stop working. You do not speak. If the tunnel collapses, you keep digging. If a man falls, you step over him." That was it. No speeches, no promises. The descent took 15 minutes in a rattling metal cage. When it stopped, the air was thick and wet. Luigi tasted coal dust immediately. The tunnel ceiling was low. Most men worked bent at the waist. Some crawled. There were no masks. After 2 hours, everyone's lungs burned. After 4, they stopped noticing. The work was simple. Dig, load, push, coal into carts, carts into darkness. 12 hours per shift, sometimes 14. Time didn't exist underground. There was no sunrise, no sunset, only exhaustion. Men started coughing blood within weeks. One Italian named Marco, a former teacher from Parma, collapsed during a shift. He wasn't unconscious. He just stopped. The guard poked him with a boot. No response. They dragged him into a side tunnel and kept working. Luigi never saw Marco again. No report, no burial. The mine swallowed men whole. Food was barely enough to stand. A ladle of turnip water. A crust of bread so hard it cut gums. Luigi learned to chew slowly, letting saliva soften it. One night, a tunnel collapsed. 6 men were trapped. The guards ordered the others to keep digging in a different section. The screams lasted for hours. No rescue was attempted. In February, Luigi was injured. A cart derailed and crushed his foot. Not broken, just smashed enough that he couldn't put weight on it. He was taken to the surface infirmary. A single room, no beds. A German medic looked at his foot and shrugged. "You can still work." Luigi was sent back underground the next day. He limped through the tunnels. Every step was pain. He began to hope for an accident bad enough to end it. That scared him more than anything, because it meant he was losing the instinct to survive. In March 1944, rumors spread. The Allies were advancing in Italy. Rome might fall. The guards became more nervous, more violent. Productivity mattered more than lives. One morning, the commandant made an announcement. Workers who signed loyalty papers would be transferred out of the mine. Better conditions. Surface labor. Luigi thought of Enzo. He thought of the factory, the bombings, the hunger. He thought of his mother, who hadn't received a letter in over a year. That night, he held the paper in his hands. All he had to do was sign. His name. One word of loyalty. And the suffering might stop. Luigi didn't sleep. By morning, the decision had to be made. The paper was thin, cheap, almost fragile. At the top, printed in perfect German type, were the words, "Declaration of Voluntary Service to the German Reich." Luigi Ferretti stared at it for a long time. His name was already typed below. All that was missing was his signature. Around him, men were signing. Some quickly, without looking. Some with shaking hands. Some crying openly. The guard watched, bored. This wasn't a test of loyalty. It was a test of endurance. Luigi thought of Italy, not Mussolini, not the king. He thought of Modena, of the railway station where he used to work, of his mother hanging laundry in the courtyard. He thought of Marco, swallowed by the mine. Of Enzo, who had signed and disappeared. If he signed, he would live. If he didn't, the mine would finish him. Luigi picked up the pencil and signed. Nothing happened. No speech, no acknowledgement. The guard took the paper and nodded. Step aside. That night, Luigi was moved to a different barrack. The food was better. Not much, but better. 2 weeks later, he was transferred again, this time to a rail repair unit supporting German troop movements. Surface work. Cold. Exposed. But alive. Luigi fixed tracks bombed by Allied planes. Every rail he aligned carried trains full of soldiers, tanks, and ammunition. He knew what that meant. Each repair made the war last longer. Each day he worked, someone else died. That knowledge was heavier than the coal. The Germans treated him differently now. Not kindly, just less violently. He was no longer disposable. He was useful. In April 1944, an Italian prisoner named Sergio refused to work. He said the war was lost, that Italy had already surrendered. The guard shot him in the leg, then left him in the snow. By morning, Sergio was dead. No one spoke. No one had to. Luigi worked harder after that, not because he believed, because he was afraid. Fear became routine, like hunger, like cold. In June, the rail unit was bombed. Luigi was thrown against a rail embankment. When he woke up, his ears rang. 3 men were dead. 1 was French. 2 were Italian. The Germans cursed the wasted labor. Within hours, new prisoners arrived. Luigi realized something terrifying. The system didn't care what he had chosen. It only cared that someone was there to replace the dead. That night, he wrote his name in the dirt with his finger, then erased it. He wondered if he would ever be the same man again. By January 1945, the war was unraveling. You could hear it before you saw it. Artillery in the distance, trains moving east instead of west, guards whispering instead of shouting. Luigi Ferretti noticed the change in the Germans first. They were tired, not scared yet, but tired. Food deliveries became irregular. Orders contradicted each other. Some guards disappeared overnight. The rail unit was moved constantly. Repair a line. Abandon it. Move again. Always west. Always away from the Red Army. In February, Luigi saw something he would never forget. A column of prisoners, mostly Soviets, being marched east. No coats, no tools, just guards and rifles. Everyone knew what that meant. They weren't being relocated. They were being erased. Luigi realized how close he had come to being among them. In March, Allied planes strafed the rail yards almost daily. One afternoon, a bomb hit less than 50 meters from Luigi's crew. The blast knocked him flat. When he stood up, the guards were gone. Just gone. No orders, no shots. No one chasing them. The prisoners looked at each other, unsure. Minutes passed, then hours. No one came back. Someone whispered, "Is this it?" No one answered. They waited until night. Then they walked. No plan, no direction, just away. The countryside was chaos. Refugees, abandoned vehicles, burning villages. Luigi walked for 3 days. On the 4th, he collapsed in a barn. When he woke up, there were American soldiers standing over him. Real Americans. Clean uniforms. Full packs. One of them spoke Italian with a heavy accent. "You're safe now." Luigi didn't cry. He didn't thank them. He just stared, because part of him didn't believe it. He was taken to a temporary Allied camp, given food, real food, too much. Several men died from eating too fast. Luigi learned to eat slowly again. He weighed 45 kilograms. The doctors wrote Italian ex-internee on his file. Not POW, not civilian, something in between. Weeks passed. The war ended in May. Celebrations erupted. Flags, music, kissing strangers. Luigi felt nothing. He slept on a cot and stared at the ceiling. Freedom had arrived, but it hadn't brought his old self back. In June 1945, they told him he could go home. Italy was liberated. Trains were running again. Luigi stood on the platform with a small bag. He hesitated. Going home meant explaining. The camp, the mine, the signature. Some things could not be explained. Some things never left. Luigi Ferretti returned to Italy in July 1945. The train crossed the border slowly, as if unsure it was allowed to enter. Stations were half destroyed, tracks twisted, buildings burned or hollowed out. This was victory. Modena looked smaller than he remembered. Or maybe he was larger now, thinner, harder. His mother was waiting on the platform. She recognized him only when he spoke. She touched his face, then his arms, as if checking whether he was real. "You're alive," she said. Luigi nodded. That was all he could manage. At home, neighbors came to see him. They asked the same questions. "Where were you? Did you fight? Did you see the Germans run?" Luigi gave short answers. "Germany. Yes. Yes." No one asked about camps. No one wanted to hear that story. Italy was busy rewriting itself. Everyone had been a victim. Everyone had been against the war. Everyone had resisted. There was no place for men who had worn the wrong uniform and suffered quietly. Luigi went back to the railway office. The building was damaged, but standing. A younger man sat at his desk. "You can't have this position," the supervisor said. "We filled it." Luigi was offered day labor, clearing rubble, carrying bricks. He accepted. At night, he dreamed of tunnels. He woke up gasping for air. Food was plentiful now. Luigi still hid bread in his pockets. In September, he went to register as a veteran. The clerk looked at his papers. "You're not listed as a POW," he said. "I was in Germany," Luigi replied. "Yes, but you were an internee." The clerk shrugged. "No benefits, no pension." Luigi left without arguing. What would he say? That he had signed? That he had survived? In 1946, the trials began. Germany was on trial. Fascism was on trial. Luigi watched from a distance. No one mentioned the Italian military internees. They didn't fit the story. They hadn't fought at the end. They hadn't resisted loudly. They had endured. Endurance was not heroic enough. Luigi married in 1948, a quiet woman named Elena. He told her some things, not everything. He worked, he slept, he survived, and he stayed silent. Luigi Ferretti never spoke publicly about the camp. Not once. Not to journalists, not to historians, not even to his children. When people asked about the war, he said the same sentence every time. "I was in Germany." And then he changed the subject. Italy moved on. The 1950s brought factories, scooters, television. The story of the war became cleaner, simpler. Heroes, partisans, liberation. There was no chapter for men who had been betrayed twice, first by their allies, then by history. The Italian military internees were mentioned in footnotes, if at all. 600,000 men disarmed by Germany after September 8, 1943. Deported, stripped of POW status, forced into labor. More than 50,000 never came back. No monuments, no parades, no National Day of Remembrance. Luigi worked for the railways until retirement. He woke up every day at the same hour. He never wasted food. He hated underground spaces. When his son once complained about hard work, Luigi said quietly, "At least you know where you are." That was the closest he ever came to explaining. In the 1980s, a historian came to Modena. He was collecting testimonies. Luigi listened, then declined. "Too late," he said. What he didn't say was this: the camps had taught him that survival often comes with guilt, that choosing to live sometimes feels like betrayal, that history prefers clear stories, and real life is never clear. Luigi Ferretti died in 1992. There was no obituary about Germany, no mention of mines or factories, just a line, "Veteran of World War II." In 2009, the Italian government officially recognized the Italian military internees. Medals were issued. Many were awarded posthumously. Luigi's daughter received one in the mail. She held it in her hands and realized something painful. Her father had carried this alone for decades. This story is not about heroism. It's about men placed in impossible situations, men forced to choose between death and compromise, men who survived and paid for it in silence. If you've never heard of the Italian military internees before, that's not an accident. History didn't forget them. It ignored them. If this story made you stop and think, hit the like button. Every like tells YouTube this matters. Subscribe for more forgotten history, stories that don't fit neatly into textbooks, because some wars don't end when the shooting stops. And some survivors are only remembered if someone decides to listen. Thank you for watching.